Hey there, my strategic commanders and tank rush enthusiasts. Today we're dialing the time circuits back to 1995, a year when flannel was the fashion and dial-up was the internet. But more importantly, it was the year when Command & Conquer decided to teach us all the fine art of virtual warfare. Not with a whisper, but with a bang. Get ready to build bases, command armies, and maybe, just maybe, learn why sending a single engineer into an enemy base was as cheeky as sneaking into a movie through the exit door. Stay tuned as we uncover a game with a simple concept of gathering resources and stomping your opponents shaped the world of real-time strategy, and why decades later, we're all still hearing that iconic "unit lost" in our sleep.
Sorry to interrupt your briefing, Commander, but we need your help now. Mobius may be crazy, but he holds the key to this Tiberium riddle. Good luck.
Back when Command & Conquer first hit the scene in '95, it wasn't just another game. It was a revolution packed in a CD-ROM. Developed by Westwood Studios, a game that would become synonymous with real-time strategy, this game was born from a blend of innovation and the fiery crucible of software development in the 90s. The development team, led by visionary duo Brett Speary and Lewis Castle, had previously made waves with Dune 2, but they were hungry for more, eager to refine and expand the RTS concept they had pioneered. Sperry and Castle, driven by the desire to create a dynamic, immersive world where strategy choices had real consequences, envisioned a game that was not just about gathering resources and building units, but about telling a story. The vision was fueled by the backdrop of the early 90s political landscape, marked by the end of the Cold War and the rise of global terrorism fears, which inspired the game's two opposing factions: the noble Global Defense Initiative, GDI, and the cult-like Brotherhood of Nod. The developers didn't just want players to play a game, they wanted them to experience a narrative. Utilizing the then cutting-edge SVGA graphics, Westwood Studios crafted detailed sprites and environments that were leagues ahead of the pixelated norms of the time. But it wasn't just about looks. The gameplay mechanics were revolutionary. Command & Conquer introduced a context-sensitive cursor that changed based on what it was hovering over, streamlining gameplay and reducing the learning curve, allowing players to think more about strategy than struggling with controls. But in the world of Command & Conquer, strategy isn't just about troop movements and resource management. It's woven into the very fabric of its compelling story, where characters are not merely units on a battlefield, but pivotal figures in a global saga. As mentioned earlier, the game introduces us to a near-futuristic world split between two diametrically opposed forces, the Global Defense Initiative and the Brotherhood of Nod, each led by characters who aren't just game pieces but are imbued with depth and motives. The GDI, portrayed as the game's protagonist force, represents a UN-like global military initiative funded by advanced nations to enforce peace and order. They are the game's good guys, but not in the cliché sense. GDI's actions and ethical decisions often blur the lines between right and wrong, mirroring real-world complexities of international peacekeeping forces. On the other side, the Brotherhood of Nod, led by the enigmatic Kane, is often viewed as the antagonist, yet their portrayal is not merely evil for evil's sake. They represent the disillusionment with globalist policies and the extreme measures taken by those who feel marginalized by the world order. Kane himself is a figure shrouded in mystery, charisma, and radical vision, making him a fascinating character who commands loyalty and fear in equal measure. These factions aren't just random groups. They are deeply rooted in the game's thematic exploration of power, control, and ideology. The storyline of Command & Conquer explores themes reminiscent of the Cold War's propaganda, drawing players into a narrative where every decision could tip the global balance. Players aren't just collecting resources and building bases. They are partaking in a larger story that questions morality, authority, and the cost of absolute power. The way characters interact and evolve throughout the game also adds layers to gameplay. Missions are not just standalone tasks, but are parts of a continuing story that builds tension and develops character arcs. For example, the transition of certain characters between factions or their moral dilemmas presented to the players adds a personal stake to the war strategies employed. Now diving into the mechanics of Command & Conquer, it's clear that the game isn't just a battleground. It's a chessboard where every pawn and knight comes with its own rulebook. The game's core revolves around a simple yet profound concept: gather, build, and conquer. However, the way Command & Conquer implements this formula is anything but pedestrian. It introduces several innovative gameplay mechanics that not only defined its era, but also set a benchmark for future real-time strategy games. Firstly, the resource management system is brilliantly deceptive in its simplicity. Players have to harvest a resource known as Tiberium, a mysterious alien substance that has both enriched and ravaged the Earth. Managing Tiberium isn't just about collecting as much as possible. It's about strategic placement of refineries, protecting supply lines from the enemy raids, and the constant decision-making between expansion and fortification. This resource dynamic creates a pulsating rhythm to the gameplay that keeps players on their toes. And speaking of staying on your toes, if you're enjoying this deep dive into the strategic labyrinth of Command & Conquer, why not hit that like button and subscribe? It helps more than a well-placed Tiberium silo in securing the future of this channel. Plus, it's less risky than a gnawed ambush. Moving on, combat mechanics in Command & Conquer are equally engaging. Units aren't just produced to swarm the opponent. They require careful consideration regarding their strengths and weaknesses against enemy forces. The introduction of various unit types, from infantry and tanks to air support, requires players to adapt their strategies constantly. This isn't just a game where you can mindlessly send troops to the front. Each unit has a role, and knowing how to combine them effectively can mean the difference between victory and defeat. And speaking of victories, upon its release in 1995, Command & Conquer quickly became more than just a popular game. It became a phenomenon. It sold over 3 million copies worldwide, a staggering number for the time, catapulting Westwood Studios to the forefront of game development. It wasn't just the sales figures that told the story, it was the way Command & Conquer influenced the gaming landscape. It popularized the real-time strategy genre, paving the way for countless successors. Its success was a clear sign to the industry that games were not just a niche product, but mainstream attractions capable of drawing millions of players. Command & Conquer also had a significant influence on other media. It inspired a series of novels, a board game, and was even considered for adaptation into a film, demonstrating its extensive reach in popular culture. The game's aesthetics and story have been referenced in various other games and media, showcasing its lasting legacy in the broader entertainment landscape. But beyond the tactical gameplay and the iconic storyline, Command & Conquer has a few hidden layers that added depth and intrigue to the game. One of the most surprising trivia about Command & Conquer is related to its development. The iconic voice of Eva, the player's AI assistant in the game, was provided by none other than Kia Huntsinger, an employee of Westwood Studios who was not originally a voice actor. Huntsinger, who was working in the quality assurance department, lent her voice purely because the developers needed a test voice during development. Her recordings were intended to be temporary, but they fit so well with the game's aesthetic that they were ultimately kept, making her voice one of the most memorable aspects of the game. Another interesting tidbit about the game's multiplayer functionality, which was one of the first games to offer competitive online multiplayer mode, utilizing the then novel internet to connect players in real-time battles. This feature was so ahead of its time, the developers initially struggled to convince their publishers of its viability, given the relatively low number of households with internet connections. Games like this and others like Doom set the stage for what would later become the multiplayer craze we know today. This game is also known for its hidden Easter eggs, which include a special fun park mission sequence that can be unlocked by a unique method. Players who renamed one of their game's files to a specific name, usually a nod to the developers or an inside joke, could unlock a series of missions that involve battling in a theme park setting, complete with deadly rides and attractions. This quirky secret mission pack not only provided additional content, but also showcased the developer's sense of humor and willingness to include lighthearted content amidst the game's generally serious tone. Moreover, the Brotherhood of Nod's mysterious leader, Kane, is played by actor Joseph D. Kane, who also served as a video director for Westwood Studios, was initially cast as Kane due to the lack of budget for hiring outside actors. His portrayal became so iconic that it not only defined the character, but also made Kane a cult figure among the game's fanbase. His menacing presence and charismatic portrayal were so compelling that they became defining features of the entire series. And just like a GDI ion cannon wiping out a Nod base in a sudden blaze of glory, we've blitzed through this epic saga of Command & Conquer. Whether you're a veteran commander or a fresh recruit, Hopefully you've mined some of the Tiberium nuggets of wisdom from our deep dive into this strategic masterpiece. Remember, the only thing faster than a minigun mowing down enemies is the pace at which you should hit that like and subscribe button. Unless, of course, you're too busy deploying your next covert operation. Happy commanding, and watch out for those sneaky engineers. If you enjoyed mining the history of Command & Conquer, click this video here to see more from the Retro Reload. And as always, thank you for watching.